welcome to my informational Helldive. There is a, a lot going on. There's always a lot going on, and I'm always struggling to kind of keep up with what is most important to kind of share. And there's a bunch of stuff going on that right this very second, I don't have anything to show you. It's the information I pulled on Sortition and random selection and allotment. I don't have a ton of faith in the overall Democratic Party. And I think that it is terrifying that the Democrats are so bad that the lesser of two evils is a muddied water to such a degree where you have people who are openly corrupt and disingenuous, but still able to sit next to people who are technically ethical because of the overall amount of embarrassing stuff that the parties have done in what they thought was behind closed doors for years. Like, I wish I had some footage of this. The idiot who is the Secretary of Commerce, he's a former reality show nitwit, right? And basically, he is testifying in front of Congress. And see, they thought that Pam Bondi and her burn book was her thing. And you're finding out that that is a Stephen Miller thing, that they've all been coached into responding to questions like that, because whataboutism has been at the forefront of this sophomoric political position. Like, this has always been the most childish political position. But they're doing this, but that's not fair. They get to do this. Like, that's literally, Stephen Miller is literally like a 15-year-old who thinks it's just not fair what they get to do, they don't get to do. Like, that's what we're dealing with. And there's no logic there. So the Secretary of Commerce is sitting there trying to say that whatever he's doing is okay because Democrats are responsible for similar things. And it's well, what about the time that you did this, And they are so disorganized and so overextended into this level of corruption that they can't even really speak on it. They can't defend themselves. Sean Duffy got to just run his mouth, and she's begging the chairperson of the room to shut him up because she can't raise her voice. And it's just, people have not been paying attention to the way government works for centuries. And the government and how it works has been exposed as a powder keg for exactly that long. The fail safes that we assumed were there, the protections to our rights we assumed were there, were always paper thin, were always at risk. Donald Trump was inevitable because we have made it like just so perfectly delectable right there for the right con artist to step in. We have let the government fall into such a disarray that a Donald Trump could do what's being done. This is super on us. And we didn't want to do anything about Roe v. Wade while it was a political football. We didn't want to do things about the Voting Rights Act while it was a political football. We could never take it to the House. The Democratic Party is that guy running the touchdown who drops the ball on the 1-yard line. And in the middle of all this, I'm like, Republicans can't field a candidate worth of shit, but Democrats just keep making the field where they can keep playing. Because there's money in the show. And finally a con man showed up and saw all this money being thrown around and said, I'm just going to take it all. And now him and Todd Blanche and his kids and Lutnick and their kids are just taking all our money. And we have set it up and left it sitting there just perfectly out there for someone like Donald Trump to show up and just take all our money. And now the rich elites who don't want to fuck with us, no way, who just have this completely idiotic worldview, and there's nothing to stop them now because we didn't want to be bothered. So when it all falls apart, and it's looking like it might, I got this. There's not my idea. History shows us that when the aristocrats finally fuck it all up, this is what we end up doing. So I will come back at the end of the string to say goodbye and whatnot. But thanks for stopping in, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about sortition.
The governance of chance, a comprehensive analysis of sortition and random selection in political appointments. The contemporary crisis of representative democracy is increasingly defined by a profound erosion of public trust, the entrenchment of partisan polarization, and the perceived capture of legislative processes by well-funded special interests. As traditional electoral mechanisms face scrutiny for their role in fostering a professionalized political class that is often detached from the lived experiences of the citizenry, political theorists and practitioners have turned their attention toward an ancient alternative, sortition. Sortition, or the selection of public officials by lot, operates on the foundational principle of descriptive representation, aiming to create a mini-public that serves as a demographically and cognitively accurate microcosm of the broader population. This report provides an exhaustive examination of the historical evolution, theoretical underpinnings, modern institutional applications, and systemic critiques of random selection in political appointments, arguing that the aleatoric turn represents a significant shift toward a more deliberative and inclusive democratic paradigm, historical paradigms, from Athenian isonomia to Venetian stability. The historical pedigree of sortition is deeply intertwined with the very origins of democratic thought. In the ancient world, and particularly within the Athenian polis, the use of the lot was not merely a logistical convenience, but a fundamental expression of isonomia, or equality of law and political rights. The Athenian transition from an aristocratic to a democratic system in the 6th century BC, spearheaded by the reforms of Solon and later Cleisthenes, placed random selection at the center of the administrative and judicial architecture, the Athenian cleriterion and the mechanics of allotment. In the 5th and 4th centuries BC, sortition was the primary method for filling the majority of public offices in Athens. With the exception of military generals, strategoi, and certain high-level financial officials who required specialized expertise, the daily functions of the state were managed by citizens chosen by lot. The Council of 500, Boule, which set the agenda for the assembly, ecclesia, was composed of 50 representatives from each of the 10 tribes, all selected through a rigorous process of allotment. This ensured that political power was distributed widely and that no single faction or family could maintain a permanent grip on the levers of government. The technological pinnacle of this system was the cleriterion, a specialized randomization device that institutionalized fairness and neutralized the potential for corruption. Prior to 403 BC, the selection for juries was often based on a first-come, first-served basis, which was susceptible to manipulation by those with the leisure to arrive early. The introduction of the cleriterion formalized the process. Citizens who wished to serve would present their pinica, a bronze or wood identification token, which would be inserted into one of the slots on the machine. A tube attached to the side of the stone slab would release colored dice, kiboi. The color of the die determined whether an entire row of tokens, representing a cross-section of the tribes, was selected for the day's service or discarded. The rationale for this extensive use of the lot was fundamentally anti-oligarchic. Ancient writers, including Aristotle and Plato, characterized elections as inherently aristocratic because they inevitably favored the best, those with wealth, rhetorical training, and high social standing. Sortition, by contrast, treated every citizen as having the capacity for rule, thereby institutionalizing the democratic ethos that political participation is a right and responsibility shared by all, not just a gifted elite. The Venetian Protocol, conflict resolution through complexity. While the Athenian model emphasized radical equality, the Republic of Venice, 1268 to 1797, utilized sortition as a mechanism for institutional stability and elite conflict resolution. The Venetian system for electing the Doge, the head of state who served for life, is perhaps the most sophisticated example of how random selection can be combined with voting to prevent factional capture. Developed in 1268, the protocol involved a 10-round procedure that alternated between sortition and qualified majority voting within the Great Council, Maggior Consiglio. The mathematical logic of the Venetian system was designed to tame chance and force consensus among the city's powerful families. In each voting round, a nominee required a significant supermajority, for example, 9 out of 11 or 25 out of 41 to proceed. This requirement, combined with the unpredictability of the lot, meant that no faction could guarantee the election of its candidate without securing broader support. The use of the ballottini, young boys who drew the balls from the urns, and the strict prohibition on family members serving in the same committee further insulated the process from bribery and nepotism. The Venetian Protocol demonstrates that sortition can serve as a circuit breaker for political deadlock. By introducing a probabilistic element, the system ensured that a minority faction had a bounded but non-zero chance of influencing the outcome, thereby discouraging the kind of civil discord and winner-take-all dynamics that often led to the collapse of other Italian city-states like Genoa. Global historical context and the modern disappearance, the use of the lot was not confined to Western antiquity or the Renaissance. In China, sortition played a vital role in the civil service during the Ming and Qing dynasties, particularly between 1594 and 1911. It was used to assign officials to specific geographic postings after they had passed the imperial examinations, thereby reducing corruption and ensuring that the most desirable regions were not monopolized by those with high-level connections. Similarly, in the ancient Tamil region of South India, local village autonomy involved elements of random selection for community councils during the Sangam period. Despite this rich history, sortition largely vanished from the political stage during the 18th century Age of Revolutions. As the founding fathers of the American and French republics sought to establish a new political order, they overwhelmingly favored elections over the lot. This shift was driven by the rise of natural law and the concept of consent of the governed, which was increasingly interpreted as being expressed through the act of voting. Political theorists like Bernard Manin have argued that the preference for elections was also a deliberate attempt to create a, quote, elective aristocracy rather than a true democracy, as the revolutionary elites remained skeptical of the capacity of the general population for self-governance. Consequently, for nearly 2 centuries, sortition remained a vestigial feature of Western law, preserved only in the random selection of juries. The epistemic and normative turn, deliberative reason. The revival of interest in sortition in the late 20th and early 21st centuries is rooted in a shift from the purely procedural view of democracy to an epistemic one. Scholars such as Helene Landemore and James Fishkin have argued that the value of democracy lies not just in its fairness, but in its smartness, its ability to produce high-quality decisions for the common good. Cognitive diversity and the wisdom of crowds. The epistemic defense of sortition rests on the concept of democratic reason. Landemore posits that the collective intelligence of a diverse group of ordinary citizens can outperform the individual expertise of a few elites. This is supported by the diversity trumps ability theorem, which suggests that in complex problem-solving scenarios, a randomly selected group of participants provides a wider array of perspectives, heuristics, and predictive models than a group consisting only of the highest ability individuals. By casting a wider net through random selection, a political system can access a broader cognitive pool. This is particularly relevant in the context of modern, wicked problems like climate change or healthcare reform, where technical expertise must be balanced with value judgments and lived experiences that a narrow political elite might overlook. Alexander Guerrero's Lottocracy, a structural alternative. Taking the epistemic argument to its logical conclusion, Alexander Guerrero has proposed a comprehensive alternative to electoral democracy known as lottocracy. Guerrero's critique of the current system focuses on the problem of voter ignorance and the subsequent lack of meaningful accountability, which allows wealthy special interests to capture representatives. His solution is to replace general-purpose legislatures with a network of single-issue lottery-selected legislatures, sills. Under Guerrero's model, each sill would consist of 450 citizens chosen by lot to serve for a 3-year term, with 1/3 of the members rotating off each year to ensure continuity. These bodies would focus on specific policy domains, such as agriculture, defense, or environmental protection. The logic of the single-issue focus is that it enables ordinary people to overcome rational ignorance and develop deep expertise in a particular area over several years. To ensure high-quality participation and insulate members from outside influence, Guerrero proposes significant financial compensation, potentially starting at a floor of $100,000 per year, or 1.1 times their normal income. and strict post-service restrictions on accepting lucrative jobs from lobbyists. Guerrero argues that this system would realign influence with authority. In an electoral system, citizens exercise influence by voting for people in authority. In a lotocracy, the citizens are the authority, and their influence merges with their decision-making power. Modern institutionalization, the deliberative wave. While Guerrero's lotocracy remains a theoretical blueprint, the deliberative wave has seen the practical implementation of sortition-based bodies across the globe, from local town halls to national constitutional reform. These bodies are generally categorized as deliberative mini-publics, DMPs, and they operate through a structured process of learning, deliberation, and decision-making. The Ost-Belgian and Brussels models. Permanent allotment. The most significant institutionalization of sortition in the 21st century has occurred in Belgium. In 2019, the German-speaking community of Belgium, Ost-Belgian, established the world's first permanent citizens' assembly with a legal mandate to set the legislative agenda. This model, designed by the organization G1000, consists of two rotating bodies, a 24-person citizens' council, and ad hoc citizens' assemblies. The Ost-Belgian model addresses the, quote, accountability risk by requiring Parliament and the relevant minister to publicly justify their decision to implement or reject any recommendation within 1 year. This comply or explain mechanism ensures that while the citizens' body does not have final sovereign authority, its deliberations have significant political weight. Furthermore, the evolution of the model after 5 years of practice has shown a trend toward increasing citizen ownership. For instance, the threshold of 100 signatures for public suggested topics was removed after it was found to be a barrier to entry. The Irish Citizens' Assemblies resolving constitutional deadlock. Ireland stands as the preeminent example of using sortition to resolve deeply divisive social and constitutional issues. Between 2012 and 2018, Ireland held two major sequences of deliberative assemblies. The Convention on the Constitution, COT-C, which included both citizens and politicians, and the Irish Citizens' Assembly, ICA, which was composed entirely of 99 randomly selected citizens. The most notable success of the ICA was its role in the 2018 abortion referendum. Tasked with examining the Eighth Amendment, which had established a near-total ban on abortion since 1983, the Assembly engaged in months of deliberation, hearing from medical, legal, and ethical experts, as well as those with personal lived experiences. The Irish case illustrates a systemic approach to deliberation. The Assembly was not an isolated event, but a stage in a broader process that included parliamentary committee scrutiny and, ultimately, a direct vote by the entire population. This structure allowed politicians to, quote, park the anger at the door, and let a representative sample of the public do the difficult work of finding common ground on a topic that had been paralyzed by partisan vitriol for decades. Mongolia, institutionalizing deliberative polling. In 2017, Mongolia became the first nation to legally require a deliberative poll before the parliament, State Great Hurl, could consider a constitutional amendment. This legal framework was inspired by the work of James Fishkin and aimed to institutionalize citizen participation in the face of widespread corruption and public dissatisfaction with the 1992 Liberal Constitution. The first national poll in 2017 brought 669 randomly selected citizens to the government palace in Ulaanbaatar. The high participation rate, 96% of those selected through the initial household survey completed the interview, and over 85% of those invited to the capital attended the deliberation, underscores the potential for sortition in transitionary or developing democracies. The deliberation led to the rejection of high-profile proposals favored by the major political parties, such as the creation of a bicameral parliament, after participants became concerned about the potential for increased gridlock and too many politicians. Instead, the Assembly supported a mixed electoral system, which was subsequently adopted as a constitutional amendment, expanding the parliament from 76 to 126 members to increase its capacity for representation. Oregon, the Citizens Initiative Review, CIR. In the United States, the state of Oregon has integrated sortition into the direct democracy process. The Citizens Initiative Review, CIR, established as a pilot in 2009 and made permanent in 2011, addresses the problem of campaign misinformation in ballot initiatives. For each initiative, a panel of 18 to 24 voters is selected using stratified random sampling to mirror the state's demographic and political diversity. The CIR process involves 5 days of public hearings where panelists interrogate advocates from both the pro and con campaigns and hear from neutral policy experts. The final output is a one-page citizen statement that includes key findings of fact and the primary reasons to vote for or against the measure. Because Oregon is a vote-by-mail state, every voter receives this statement in their official voter's pamphlet along with their ballot. Research indicates that these statements significantly increase voter knowledge and trust, as they are seen as authentic communications from people like us, rather than partisan advertisements. The mechanics of modern allotment, recruitment, and process. The transition from ancient pure random selection to modern stratified selection is a response to the logistical challenges of large-scale societies and the psychological reality of self-selection bias. Stratified random sampling, the civic lottery. Modern sortition usually involves a two-stage process. In the first stage, a large number of invitation letters, often 10,000 to 30,000, are sent to randomly selected addresses from the tax rolls or voter registers. This is the civic lottery, ensuring that every household has an equal mathematical chance of being invited. In the second stage, from the pool of individuals who respond positively, typically 2% to 5% of the total invited, a final group is selected using an algorithm. This algorithm ensures that the final assembly is a microcosm of the population across key variables. Gender, usually a strict 50-50 split. Age, proportional representation of young, middle-aged, and senior citizens. Education level, critically important to ensure that those without university degrees are not excluded, as they are often underrepresented in electoral politics. Geography, proportional representation of urban, suburban, and rural residents. Political or attitudinal affiliation, increasingly used to ensure a fair spread of opinion on the specific topic being addressed. The role of facilitation and expert guidance. To ensure that a randomly selected group can handle technical complexity, modern assemblies rely on professional facilitation and expert advisory boards. Facilitators, such as those from the UK organization Involve or the Jefferson Center, are trained to maintain neutrality and prevent groupthink or the dominance of louder individuals. This structure addresses the amateurism critique by keeping experts on tap but not on top. The experts provide the necessary data, but the citizens provide the value judgments and the ultimate decision-making authority. Systemic critiques and the challenges of legitimacy. Despite the deliberative wave, sortition faces significant theoretical and practical objections. These criticisms focus on accountability, the potential for elite capture, and the problem of the, quote, lucky few, the accountability deficit, and a blind deference. The most profound challenge to sortition is the absence of traditional democratic accountability. In an electoral system, the primary mechanism of control is the threat of dismissal, the ability of the electorate to vote a representative out of office. A sortitioned body, by definition, is not elected and cannot be dismissed by those it represents. This has led critics to characterize the relationship between the broader public and a citizens' assembly as one of blind deference. Citizens are expected to follow decisions made by a tiny group of their peers who happen to be lucky in the lottery, with no way to collectively shape the political agenda or sanction those who perform poorly. Elite capture and the new professionalism. There is also a risk that sortition could inadvertently empower a different kind of elite. Because randomly selected citizens often lack experience in complex policymaking, they may become overly dependent on the professional facilitators who manage the process, or the experts who provide the briefing materials. Some democratic theorists have warned that giving binding power to a sortitioned assembly could lead to a new type of elite that bypasses the broader public sphere, thereby failing to involve the whole population in political discussion. Furthermore, the professionalization of politics that sortition aims to eliminate can manifest within the assemblies themselves. In the Ostbelgian model, for instance, only those who have previously served in a citizens' assembly are eligible to join the Citizens' Council. While this smooths the learning curve, it also risks creating a subclass of permanent participants who are no longer representative of the average citizen. Self-selection bias and the joiner's problem. The legitimacy of sortition rests on the idea that the assembly is a representative mirror of society. However, because participation is voluntary, the group that actually turns up is skewed toward those with the time, resources, and inclination to participate. Even with stratified sampling, the assembly may overrepresent politically active individuals and underrepresent those who are disaffected or socially marginalized. In the Irish case, for example, it emerged that 7 participants in the assembly were friends of a recruiter from the polling company, which led to significant public outcry and claims that the process was compromised. Future horizons, sortition, and the reform of upper chambers. One of the most promising areas for the integration of sortition is the reform of unelected or poorly functioning second chambers, such as the UK House of Lords. The House of Lords is currently characterized by a massive size, over 800 peers, a lack of demographic representativeness, and a process of appointment rooted in political patronage. The House of Citizens proposal The Sortition Foundation and other groups have proposed replacing the House of Lords with a House of Citizens, a permanent second chamber selected by lottery. This body would be tasked with holding the government to account, challenging legislation, and conducting public inquiries. James Robertson of the Sortition Foundation argues that this model would bridge the trust gap in UK politics, as citizens have higher levels of civic trust in their peers than in career politicians. By removing party machines and patronage networks from the second chamber, the House of Citizens could prioritize the public interest over partisan point scoring. Similar ideas have surfaced in France, where the 2021 reform of the Economic, Social and Environmental Council, ESEC, has already integrated randomly selected citizens into its deliberations, creating a crossroads of participation, where civil society experts and ordinary citizens work together to evaluate public policy. Synthesizing the aleatoric turn, insights and implications, the re-emergence of sortition as a serious tool for political appointment represents more than a nostalgic return to Athenian roots. It is a pragmatic response to the structural failures of modern electoralism. The transition from election-only to hybrid models of governance suggests several deep-seated trends and potential ripple effects for the future of democratic stability. The decoupling of consent from the vote. Historically, the legitimacy of a government has been almost exclusively tied to the act of voting. However, the successful integration of sortition in places like Ireland and Belgium indicates that, quote, consent can also be derived from identification and similarity. When citizens see a diverse group of their peers, people with similar economic struggles, family responsibilities, and cultural backgrounds, deliberating on an issue, they are more likely to view the outcome as legitimate, even if they did not personally cast a vote for the participants. This descriptive legitimacy serves as a powerful counterweight to the procedural legitimacy of elections, which can often feel like a hollow exercise in choosing between two pre-selected elites, toward a liquid and distributed sovereignty. The use of sortition-based single-issue legislatures, as proposed by Guerrero, or the ad hoc assemblies in Ostbelgien, suggests a move toward a more distributed form of sovereignty. Rather than concentrating all decision-making power in a single multi-purpose parliament, the lautocratic approach disperses authority across numerous domain-specific bodies. This not only improves the epistemic quality of decisions by allowing for specialization, but also creates more entry points for citizens to engage with the state. In the long term, this could lead to the development of a civic infrastructure, where participation is not a rare event, but a regular, rotating feature of adult life, much like the Athenian model. The role of technological and methodological rigor. The viability of sortition in the 21st century is fundamentally dependent on the rigor of its methodologies. The use of GPS-tracked household surveys in Mongolia and the complex algorithms for stratified sampling in Oregon show that modern sortition is a high-tech political technology. As artificial intelligence and data science continue to evolve, the ability to select truly representative and unbiased samples will only improve, potentially addressing the current challenges of self-selection bias and recruitment. However, this reliance on methodology also introduces a new dependency on process experts, the organizations and academics who design and run the assemblies. The integrity of future sortition-based appointments will depend on the transparency and neutrality of these practitioners. As the field matures, there will likely be a need for formal deliberative standards, similar to those developed by the OECD or the Institute for Government, to ensure that random selection is not used as a veneer of legitimacy for predetermined government decisions. Concluding synthesis, the future of random selection. Sortition stands at a critical juncture in the evolution of democratic governance. Once a forgotten relic of the ancient world, it has been reimagined as a sophisticated tool for managing the complexities and fractures of modern society. The empirical evidence from Ireland, Mongolia, and Belgium demonstrates that ordinary citizens, when provided with sufficient time, expert information, and a structured deliberative environment, are capable of making high-quality decisions on some of the most challenging issues facing the state. The lautocratic alternative offers a compelling remedy for the pathologies of contemporary electoralism. It reduces the influence of money and patronage, restores descriptive representation for marginalized groups, and promotes a more consensual and long-term approach to policymaking. While it cannot replace the need for specialized expertise or the ultimate accountability of the broader public sphere, sortition provides a vital, deliberative middle, where the intelligence of the many can be channeled toward the public good. As nations continue to struggle with the democratic fatigue syndrome and the rise of populism, the integration of random selection into the institutional fabric of government offers a path toward a more resilient and inclusive political future. Whether through the reform of upper chambers, the creation of permanent citizen councils, or the use of assemblies for constitutional change, the governance of chance provides a necessary and radical innovation for the project of self-rule in the 21st century. The challenge for the coming decades will be to move from deliberative experiments to deliberative systems, ensuring that the voice of the randomly selected citizen is not just heard, but is given a permanent and consequential seat at the table of power.
Good. I could not have timed that any better. The video ended with the end, like literally the mission ended with the end of the ticker. So thank you for checking out the live stream. I am like just not, I'm not feeling good. I'm under the weather sort of. Just tired, like canceling and no excuses. But I am gonna like take a break and find something to eat. And chances are, because I've been playing some Mass Effect lately, so chances are I'm probably going to spend the rest of my time off playing Mass Effect and writing. I'm in super writing mode. Let me let these dudes go, because they don't need to be sitting here for this. I said thanks and all that stuff, but
Allied destroyer
has left they take
squadron.
off. Okay, but yeah, like
No friendly.
oh. Okay, I'm about to let these guys go. Oh, okay. So, live stream wise, I'm in writing phase. New World Chronicles is like 7 or 8 chapters that were at one point different comic book chapters that were like like 12 issues of this, 12 issues of that I'm putting in one big massive graphic novel, just one big thick book. Production wise, I've gotten the first issues, like the first 4 issues done before. I just didn't like the finished product. I have this whole new artistic approach in my mind, but in order to see it finished, I have to write it. Like I'm doing everything, so I need to do everything, So I'm in the writing phase now, and it's already been beneficial. The first issue always bugged me because I felt like I didn't need to get to it so immediately. It was just like I was trying to get to my favorite parts immediately. Like I just wasn't telling a story. So that's on my days off now until the writing is finished. That's my primary focus. Live streaming is when I just can't stop watching the news, and it's like, does everyone know about this? Like that's kind of where that comes from. So at least like right now. At some point, I'd like my live stream to inform my comic book stuff. Like originally, my Twitch channel was Dan the Comic Book Man, and all that changed. But hopefully, like I'm not pressuring myself. I just want to finish. So I'm thinking maybe this time next year, all the writing is done, like all of it. It's a little slow going, because I'm getting out of familiar territory and having to remember story ideas I had and didn't write down 20 years ago and stuff like that. But I'm going to work to edit this video and get this on my YouTube channel as soon as possible. And then I'll probably have some more stuff in the AM hour later this week. But